That's what fascists do. They go on TV and they yell whenever anyone challenges their fascist language and their fascist policies. Here's one of those fascists.
You using the term disappearing people is
that's
disgusting.
What's happened. That happened to the group that was sent to El Salvador.
U.S. citizens get arrested every day. U.S. citizens get arrested by police every day. Are they being disappeared? No, their laws are being enforced. They're being arrested. They're being put in detention because they committed a criminal offense.
Not like what you're doing.
Not even close. We're enforcing the law and arresting people here in violation of law that are public safety threats. That's not disappearing people. That's enforcing the laws of this country and making this country safer.
I thank you very much for explaining what ICE considers to be a danger and a criminal threat. Everybody understands the reality, and we appreciate your sharing that reality with us, and we would love the data.
You're not going to get the data, Mika. So Tom Homan jumped on the show and started screaming about how he's so upset that anybody calls their kidnapping of folks disappearing people, despite the obvious facts that they've been disappearing people, in fact, bragged about it. Something else, Mika asked him for some of these numbers, the information behind what it is they're doing with these violent criminals that they're taking off the streets. He wants you to just trust him about the numbers of what's going on with their crime crackdowns and their invasions of cities with the National Guard. Here's some reality from Washington. The Washington Post repeatedly reached out to the White House for the arrest records undergirding their statistics and has not yet received answers to questions about the specific details of each arrest. It's weird that Tom Homan said they're making all these arrests and just to trust them. Here's more. D.C. police deferred a similar request, saying the information needed to come from the White House. They have control over the information that we're supposed to see. When asked specifically about the number of arrests made by local officers, not federal agents, D.C. police directed the questions to the mayor's office, which is not responsible for arrest data and did not respond. I've got more. And as a result here, there's a black hole instead of the usually readily accessible basic information surrounding an arrest. For example, when D.C. police make an arrest, there will be a public incident report, a public document that includes, among other things, the offense and its location and date and a short description of what happened. D.C. police continue to provide the reports for crimes in which local officers made the arrest, but refuse to answer questions about many of the arrests made by the multi-agency federal task force teams, despite D.C. police officers being embedded with many of them. They're using, as they federalize the D.C. police force, they're using them to be a part of this whole thing for legitimacy purposes, and then they're covering up the kinds of arrests they're making, who they're arresting, where they're taking them, what the purpose of these arrests are, and then as they're now stopping and frisking folks based off of the color of their skin. More on that D.C. crime numbers. Federal officers have been seen around the district wearing masks while making arrests and driving off in unmarked cars, making it difficult to discern which agency could provide any information about who was arrested, where they were taken, and why. At last I heard, when we don't know where someone was taken, why they were arrested, and who did it to them, that sounds like kidnapping, which also equates with disappearing, which Tom Homan and marbles in his mouth keep talking about is not happening, because the answer to that is trust me. The lack of specificity creates circumstances in which it's hard to say who is being arrested and who's arresting them. Meanwhile, Trump continues to tout the progress of this operation. Progress that, without publicly available arrest data, is difficult to measure. It's like they're fascists running the country, and now they're running in American cities, and what they said is the credible reasons why they're running into American cities is that they're arresting all these violent criminals. Tom Homan said people aren't getting disappeared.
So this all started around, I think if I remember correctly, it was June 8th. I was on my way to work, which I did every day, I cycled every day, and I was arrested by an ICE officer and kind of kidnapped, I guess, off the street, and taken to Chrome Detention Centre. The conditions in Chrome were the most inhumane thing that I've ever experienced in my life. They had nowhere for anyone to sleep, they weren't feeding people, and they were very abusive to the inmates. The holding cell that had us in for almost 8 days was meant to have 10 people in it, and there was at least 100 men. We were like sardines, all just stuck on like a cold concrete floor. I want people to know that it's not just criminals that are being taken, it's like normal everyday people. Like myself, like I had like a correct visa. I had all my paperwork together. I had a social security number. I paid my taxes. I've never been in trouble with the police before in my life, either in America or Northern Ireland, and still they took me. You know, I think they're just looking for numbers at this point. A lot of things that either happened to me and happened to others. There was a guy that had been asking for his medication for days for his heart, and when we were out in the rec hall, the rec yard, he dropped dead of a heart attack in front of everyone. They kind of just moved us all away from him, but it's something that I'm never ever gonna forget. You know, it's ingrained in my head.
People die. You disappear people off the streets. You have no record of it. You have no reasons behind it, but you say you're going after the violent, criminal, illegal aliens, and they rush people off and do whatever it is they want to them because it's a murderous regime. I'm trying to figure out. Don't forget. Remember the guy Luigi Mangione who allegedly shot that CEO? And the news was on fire. We can't let this happen. How could it happen? There's murder in the middle of our streets in New York. Can't let it happen. They're literally collecting mass groups of people and allowing them to die in front of other folks in the middle of a prison yard somewhere, who knows where, and while they abuse and hurt others, pack them into areas like sardines, treat them inhumanely. And there's not enough of a peep of let's stop this right now, because murderers are running the country. That's what Make America Great Again really means. Let's bring it back. Open mass murder of anyone that disagrees with the fascist in the White House. Remember I was talking about those numbers in D.C.? That was right before I talked about that guy that was disappeared that Tom Homan said nobody's being disappeared. It's odd. There's a certain kind of crime that Donald Trump doesn't want counted in D.C. You won't be surprised to hear it.
No, it's more than 87%, virtually nothing, and much lesser things that take place in the home they call crime. You know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say, this was a crime, see? So now I can't claim 100%. But we are a safe city. You can walk to a restaurant. You can walk to the White House if you work there. You can walk to the Capitol.
The kind of crime that he's upset about it not being 100% of this military-occupied state in D.C. are domestic violence crimes. Just a little fight with the wife. All he did was beat her up. Maybe he stabbed her. Maybe he pulled out a gun and pointed it in her face. Maybe this same MAGA party years ago, when they reversed some of these gun protections and they made sure that domestic abusers still had access to their guns, which is one of the main ways that domestic abusers kill their wives at home, or just their girlfriends, or maybe just an acquaintance, maybe someone that they had a fantasy about being their woman. This party likes to kowtow to giving criminals guns as long as they're the right kinds of criminals, the ones that Donald Trump doesn't want counted in what he claims is 100% crime-free Washington, D.C. Hey, let me show you guys this. This whole thing started with Donald Trump talking about this black man that killed this white woman on the train, viciously and brutally. It was a horrific murder.
And they've adopted a policy of catch and release for thugs and killers. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we saw the results of these policies when a 23-year-old woman who came here from Ukraine met her bloody end on a public train. And here's a picture of it. This is the picture of it. And this is a picture of the woman, a beautiful young girl that never had problems in life, with a magnificent future in this country. And now she's dead. She was slaughtered by a deranged monster who was roaming free after 14 prior arrests.
You know what he's not talking about? Visible blood. Man sat behind woman on bus before slicing her throat in an unprovoked attack. It's really weird how that is. Can you guys see the picture? For those of you, maybe you guys just listening and not watching. It's a picture of a white guy. It's a white guy who sat behind someone on a bus and slit this woman's throat. But he wasn't a black person, so you can't use that to go and invade other cities. Here's details. A 42-year-old man in Oklahoma. Wow. You mean that's not Chicago, Baltimore, Los Angeles, New York, or Detroit? Weird. A 42-year-old man in Oklahoma has been arrested after he allegedly slashed the throat of a woman riding a city bus in Tulsa in what has been described by authorities as an unprovoked attack. Police said there was visible blood on Rhodes' clothing and that a bloody knife was recovered from his pocket during a search of his person. The victim was rushed to a local hospital. Her injuries were so severe that detectives from the department's homicide unit were called to the scene. Luckily, she survived and he tried to murder her. But you know, as long as her throat only gets slashed and she doesn't die, maybe this isn't that big of a deal. Here's the best part. What Donald Trump also talked about was how we keep giving these violent thug criminals in these Democrat-run cities and states, we keep letting them back off the hook. If we just stop letting them out of jail, because they always go to jail because we know that black folks are more prone to violence and criminal behavior than white folks, then maybe this whole thing can be solved.
She was slaughtered by a deranged monster who was roaming free after 14 prior arrests. We cannot allow a depraved criminal element of violent repeat offenders to continue spreading destruction and death throughout our country.
Last part of this story of this 42-year-old white person in Oklahoma who slashed the throat of a woman on a bus. In addition to the charges, Rhodes is also being held on a fugitive from justice warrant out of Missouri, is what police said. It's almost like it's the same damn thing. But Donald Trump isn't having press conferences where he says we need to respond with vicious law and order against those people because they only understand violence.